Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the program. Now, here's the deal. I used to say in an old promo for this show and for its predecessor show that if money glowed in the dark and you could look at this planet from deep space, what you would see would tell you a lot. The flow and ebbs and eddies and currents of money around the world would tell you a lot about the lives of individual people and about the fates of nations and empires. Now, Credit Suisse, which is a Swiss bank, has released its annual global wealth report, and that tells us a lot too. Credit Suisse's report tells us that for the first time in history, the richest 1% of people on this planet now hold half of the planet's wealth. That is an historic crossing line for the planet as a whole and for everybody on it. By the bank's reckoning, just over $250 trillion worth of wealth has been amassed by households, and 120,000 people who qualify as the ultra-rich have a net worth of at least $50 million in assets. There are 120,000 people who meet that group. Then just below them are 34 million people who have $1 million or more, and they make up 0.7% of the world's population, and but they own 45.2% of the world's wealth. Now, at the bottom is pretty much everybody else. So we've got the ultra poor who are significantly represented in the world as a whole. So we have a very unequal distribution of wealth. Now, in the midst of all of this, one of the things we learn is that the American middle class, a shrinking population, is worse off than the middle class of other nations, and that the size of the middle class in China is now greater than the size of the middle class in the United States. But what do we mean when we say the middle class is worse off in the United States than it is elsewhere in the world? It means that however you categorize yourself, have less proportionally of the nation's wealth. So we have a middle class that is shrinking. It owns less of the nation's wealth. And yet, perhaps not coincidentally, in fact, definitely not coincidentally, the United States has more millionaires than any other country on earth. The U.S. upped its share of global millionaires from 41% to 46%. So, short version, growing wealth inequality around the world. The 1% now own more than half of the world's wealth. The United States is falling behind China in the number of people in the middle class. Obviously, China is a bigger country, but the United States middle class is worse off than the middle class in a lot of other countries. And yet we have more millionaires than any other country. So what does all of this tell you? It tells you a couple things. One is that the international dominance of capital over political decision-making is growing by and large, and especially in this country, and that needs to be checked. The international flow of capital with multinational corporations and investment flow and all that sort of thing is creating greater global wealth inequality as well as greater inequality here at home. So we need to get smart about looking at these issues. We need to get responsible about how to handle and manage the issue of wealth inequality. We need to have our policies take this into effect, whether it's taxation policies, whether it's policies to protect Social Security and Medicare, which we will be discussing in this program, whether it's anti-poverty policies, education policies. We need to be aware that our country and our planet are growing increasingly inequitable, and we need to do something about it, not something frightening or draconian, but something reasonable and just. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is the Zero Hour.